Let me get to some questions here. First one is from Dolly. Did anyone catch when Lorie was leaving the courtroom and made a comment to the woman with the dark hair, possibly one of her advisors, probably her advisory counsel or her paralegal? It looked as though Lorie was visibly upset and made a snide remark. I'm wondering if you know who that woman was and did you catch it? I did not catch it. I did see them talking. I don't know if I would necessarily say she had like a snide demeanor. Maybe she did. I can tell you she was far more upset based on my observation in Idaho when that one ended than here in Arizona. She seemed really upset in Idaho and didn't even talk to her attorney. She had her arms crossed and she walked out of the courtroom. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that was like, but let me get to some of your other questions. This is Danielle. Listening to some of the jurors' interviews, they were very careful to not say anything wrong for the worry of a mistrial. What would they have to be careful of saying? Well, if they said that they had previous knowledge of the case, or if they're like, I watched Courtroom Insider every night, I watched Court TV, I went home and watched the trial, anything like that could be really careful. The judge did remind them every day of the admonition to avoid media and avoid talking to people about it. So that's what they had to be careful of. Does stipulation mean that Lorie is admitting her guilt? Not necessarily. No, it doesn't. It just means that they stipulate to certain things. For instance, they can stipulate to, if the state wants to bring in a bunch of evidence, the defense can stipulate beforehand to save time to be like, okay, yeah, we're fine with this. We're not going to argue this. Or vice versa. The prosecution can be like, okay, we stipulate that that's okay. In Idaho, they stipulated with some of the witnesses in Chad's trial because it was such a lengthy trial that if the defense wanted to go outside of the scope of questions that the prosecutor had, there would be some leniency just simply to make the case move along. Otherwise, you'd have objections from one side saying, hold up, that's outside of the scope. So there could be all sorts of stipulations that are public and some that aren't. Lorie stipulated to the aggravation factor, I think simply she didn't want to hear it read. She didn't want to hear the witnesses, anything like that. As much as I love you, Nate, this is from Kathleen. If the press had not been chasing the jurors down, there wouldn't be a question and possible mistrial. Why can we not leave the jury in peace? Good question, Kathleen. And it's a question that you have to wonder about. Different reporters have different styles. I'm not one to necessarily chase someone down. The way that I chase them down is to give them my card. I didn't take my cameraman with me and been like, what do you want to say? Other stations do it differently. It's a big story. We want to talk to the jurors. If the jurors don't want to talk, we don't. I talked about this last night, and even with Tosh a minute ago, that I think that the jurors that didn't want to talk to the media, they should have walked them out a separate door. But it sounds like they all just said, no, we'll just walk out the front and fend for ourselves. Our job is to report the news and talk to as many people as we can and have them share their stories. And, that's our job. We can't control what people say. We don't know what they're going to say. They can misspeak, and it can be as clear as if the juror comes back and says, I misspoke. I didn't mean to say that. I was confused. I was caught in the moment. And that can be good. We take people for their words. So our job is just to report without fear or favor and track down the facts. But you raise a good point. I totally understand your point. Should jurors even talk? I know it's a divisive issue. Many of you have different thoughts about it. I'm all for talking with everybody. Everybody. I think maybe you don't air it. Maybe we ran into this circumstance with Julie Rowe a few years ago. I didn't know what value Julie Rowe might add to the story, but she came into our newsroom. We did the interview, and then 2 or 3 days later, the kids were found, and the story advanced. The story moved on to a different level. It wasn't until at the end of Chad's trial last year when Julie apparently was saying things online about that interview of things she said that she told me that we decided to release the interview. And I won't get into all that. I did that last year. So anyway, good point. It's an ethical thing. We talk about it a lot. It's the same thing that I ran into after there was a school shooting in Rigby, Idaho. Do you interview the kids when they walk out of the school? They've just witnessed a horrible, traumatic event. Do you go and stick a mic in their face? They probably have a lot to say. I didn't interview any kids. I didn't. I could have interviewed 50 kids that day, I'm sure. And legally, we would have had the right to interview the kids. It's not illegal for a news reporter to talk to a kid. At our newsroom, we get permission from the parents. Uh, but I could have. What? How do you feel? And I didn't. I debated there on the scene. Other news outlets interviewed the kids. I didn't. I've read a bunch of stuff about school shootings and how traumatic they are, and maybe looking back, maybe I should have grabbed one or two kids, but I didn't. But we all have different styles, so I'm not saying my way is right or that my way is wrong. Some would argue interview the kids. They saw the whole thing. I wanted to wait a few days before I interviewed a few, and I ended up not ever interviewing any. But that's how it was. Unfortunately, nobody was killed in that horrible shooting. Casey, can you tell us if Adam has been apologized to by his family who did not believe him? I don't know all of those details about apologies or whatnot. I know that from what I understand, there's been some reconciliation within the family, and everybody, of course, has a different viewpoint. But if I get a chance to talk to Adam, I'll ask him. Will it be the same judge for Brandon's case as it was for Charles's? Yes, it will be, and that's why one of the reasons that it's going to be happening quicker. Although Lorie really pushed to have it happen quick because she wants her speedy trial. But the judge is going to a different rotation in this summer, so they had to do it, or otherwise it would be a different judge. Is there a limit to how many victim impact statements can be read at sentencing? Not necessarily. It's up to the judge. He can have them read. Some sentencings take several days. Some it's short. Some they want the victim impact statement is mainly for the judge to use in his consideration of the sentencing, but some want to talk to the defendant. So it all depends on what the judge will allow. Sometimes people say, I want this private, please don't read it. And others times they say, I want this read, or I want to stand up and speak. And there are certain things that judges might not allow in. I know the victim impact statements in Idaho, the prosecutor looked at them, and you had to be very careful. You can't just get up. It's how the crimes have affected you. You can't just get up and, spout off at the defendant. People have done that, they have, but it's really more to give your statement and talk about how this has impacted you. When is sentencing? Sentencing will be at the end of Brandon Boudreaux's trial. So the deal with that will be Lorie asked for that, and once Brandon's is wrapped up, I imagine the judge will just sentence her all at once, and that's how that will go. All right, everybody, thanks so much for watching tonight. My thanks to Tosh, our juror, for juror number 8, for chatting with us and sharing her insight. And again, if there's other jurors that want to talk, happy to speak with them. I'm headed out to Idaho. In fact, by the time you watch this, I'll probably be on the road. I pre-recorded today, and tomorrow we'll have a Mike Watkiss here, probably from Las Vegas. Well, he won't be in Vegas. I might be in Vegas as I work my way home. But really appreciate you watching. This has been Courtroom Insider. I'm Nate Eaton. Talk to you later.